What if the biggest threat to scientific progress isn't a lack of funding or a shortage of brilliant minds, but something a lot sneakier, a fear of asking the wrong questions? Today, we're going to dive into physicist Lawrence Krauss's really provocative argument on this exact topic.
And really, it all boils down to this one single question that's right at the heart of his entire argument. Are there some ideas, some topics out there that are just too dangerous to even question?
Well, for Krauss, the answer to that is a hard no. In fact, he sees what's happening right now as a direct threat to the whole idea of inquiry itself.
To him, the single biggest enemy, what he calls the anathema to scientific progress, is the idea that any question is off limits. Because think about it, if you can't ask a question, no matter how uncomfortable it might make someone, then progress just stops, dead in its tracks.
Now, he uses a specific, and a pretty provocative term to describe this, fundamentalist wokeism. And it's really important we understand what he means by this. He's not talking about being aware of social issues. He's defining it as a really rigid mindset, where certain ideas are treated as absolute truths, even without evidence, and you're just not allowed to discuss or question them.
And he breaks down what this mindset looks like. It's basically a belief system where some topics are totally forbidden. Some statements just can't be said, and simply raising a question about these approved truths is seen as an act of harm, like you're doing something dangerous.
So what's the real-world impact of all this? Well, according to Krauss, it leads straight to this widespread culture of fear. And ironically, it's happening in the very places that are supposed to be encouraging debate. He says this fear is especially bad in academia. He talks about his colleagues, and he says it's many, if not most of them, who are now genuinely afraid to teach certain subjects or say certain things in their own classrooms, all because they're worried about the professional or social backlash.
And this really gets to the core of what he thinks education should be. He says, a university isn't supposed to be a safe space for your ideas. It should be the exact opposite. It's supposed to be the one place where your beliefs get challenged. For Krauss, that feeling of being uncomfortable, that's the sign that you're actually learning something new.
He then lays out this pretty chilling path people go down. It starts with a very real fear of the consequences. So because of that fear, you start to consciously avoid certain topics. But over time, that avoidance just becomes a habit. It becomes an unconscious self-censorship where you don't even realize you're steering clear of important conversations anymore.
Okay, so that's the problem. But Krauss doesn't just leave us there. He actually proposes an antidote. And it's an antidote that's not about being certain, but about embracing doubt.
He actually thinks the entire solution, the very foundation of learning and discovery, is hiding in three of the simplest but most powerful words we have.
I don't know. That's it. For Krauss, saying this is not admitting you failed, it's the exact opposite. It's an invitation to go find out. It is the starting gun for every scientific breakthrough, for every real moment of learning. And this sets up a really clear choice between two different paths. On one side, you've got dogma, which Krauss compares to religion, where you start out believing you already have the answer before you even ask the question. But on the other side, you have discovery, what he calls science, which always begins with the humility of just saying, I don't know.
So all of this leads to his big vision for what learning and education should really feel like. It's not about downloading information. It's about going on a shared adventure.
It should be an actual exciting voyage of discovery for everyone. Not some boring class where you just memorize and spit back facts that somebody else already figured out, but a process where you get to figure things out for yourself. And he makes this super practical. He tells parents, when your kid asks you one of those tough questions, don't be afraid to just say, I don't know. Same thing for teachers in the classroom. Because that one little phrase can completely transform the moment. It turns uncertainty into this incredible opportunity to say, hey, that is a great question. Let's find out together. And this last thought from him just brings it all home. It's such a powerful reminder that, a concept might be old news to humanity, but for the child who's getting it for the very first time, for them, it's a huge personal discovery. It's the pure joy of figuring something out, and that, he argues, is what we should be fighting to protect.
So, we'll leave you with this to think about. In a world that seems to prize being certain all the time, Krauss is asking us to do the opposite. What new ideas, what kind of progress, what amazing discoveries are just waiting out there for us, if only we had the courage to ask any question, and to start with those three simple words, I don't know.